Hi, it's Jared from Strongroots Farm. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to continue on with building pastures from scratch series. So it is mid-August. We did an initial video which the icon looks something like this. It will be down in the description. I encourage you to check that out later after you watch this video. But today I'm going to take you through the different pastures, talk to you about the yields that we have gotten and how much each section cost at this point. We seeded back in April. We have already baled once. We're getting ready to get our second cut, and we have 6 different paddocks with 6 different tests. You'll see that in that other video. Today, we're simply gonna talk about the results of what we got, what we think our yield are gonna be, because this weekend, we're gonna be getting that second cut and baling, and that will give us a good calculation of our return on investment. Stick around, I'm gonna take you through it all. Well, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. As we get started here, we're first gonna look at the section that we did what we're calling the Greg Judy method, simply unrolling hay. Now, as you look out here today, it looks like Greg Judy was right. You can simply unroll hay, not put down any fertilizer or lime or anything on a piece of ground that used to be a soybean field, and you can get a luscious hay ground. I will tell you that if you watched the previous video, you know that is not the truth. We did not get a first cutting yield. So when we were baling on the other sections, we were bush hogging here. We bush hogged it back, and we did spread a little bit of lime, and we did spread one pass of manure through here, which you see this little divot right here in the grass. That is where clover came up. Everything else that's out here is foxtail and fescue. We did not have a good coverage of grasses. There is a little bit of sparse, the clovers, the orchard grasses. It's sparse though, because all we did was feed cattle and unroll hay. There was manure out here, but it was all manure that was dropped. Will it turn out to be a good hay? We'll see as we get ready to bale here this weekend, and you'll see here at the end of the video, we'll keep that going. But my problem is that yes, it was low investment, only $100 an acre, because that's the rent on this ground. We are renting this ground. We paid $100 an acre for this test. We will not make our money back with the hay that we're gonna get off. And that is the problem with just unrolling hay, in my opinion. But there you go, you see it. We'll see what yields we do as we start cutting. The next paddock on the other side of the fence here is one of our best paddocks. And this was what I did. This is I don't know if you want to call it my paddock, what I thought I would do. But we put down 50 pounds to the acre of lime, which is nearly nothing. Bought it at TSC in bags and did it with our gator. We put down $50 worth of seed. Or maybe $35 worth of seed per acre on this, right? So we purchased seed. This was good seed from our seed company, Welter Seed, that we typically order from. We baled this the very first time. The big difference from this and the next 2 fields that you're gonna see is that we put a bunch of manure down, probably 10 manure loads on this acre here, but we got 4 round bales that weighed 1,000 pounds to 1,100 pounds each off first cutting. This ground here has cost us $150 an acre this year. $100 for the rent, $50 an acre for our seed, a little bit of fertilizer and a little bit of lime that we put on. The manure was free. It did cost us some fuel. You can put another $5 there if you want to penny pinch it out. But we're very cheap here still per acre. Most of that is still rent, but we got 4 round bales. If you average it at like $40 a round bale, which is what hay costs around here, we gained $120 back, spending $150. Still losing money, welcome to farming, but we're gonna get a second cutting off this, so we will have a profitable year off this year by spending only $50 an acre in material, and then our rent and everything else on top of that with labor and baling equipment, all of that. You have to put all that in there, however you wanna do that for yourself, and it's gonna be different for every person, but this has worked out really well, and it was really high quality hay the first time. Now this is the other side. There's 2.3 acres over here, and it looks pretty identical now, but the first cutting, we got absolutely nothing. Nothing grew. Well, it grew. This grass grew. It just wasn't thick. It was thin, as you saw in the first video. So we did not get a first cutting off of this. It only cost us $50 an acre as well. So we're at 150 per acre here. The biggest difference between here and what you just saw was that this did not have a lot of manure. We only manured right here against this fence. We did not manure. We only did 2 stripes, I think, maybe 3. So we're only in about 50 feet with manure. The rest, we didn't do anything. We did not have a lot of growth in first cutting, so we chose to bush hog it down. It was thicker than where the unrolling hay was for sure. We chose to feed those seeds back and feed that grass back to the soil because it's the first year. It was soybeans before, low organic material. So we chose to put it all back in and really play the long game on this field because we're gonna have it for many years, but we're gonna get a second cutting off this. We will get a yield that will almost pay our costs for the first year, and then this will continue to grow year after year after year and feed our cattle. So I'm still happy with this, but no, we probably could have put a little more fertilizer on, or we could have got some more manure and put it on. And this also had the cheaper Rural King seed, which there's less variety in here than what you saw on the other pasture. That's just about buying a little bit better seed, you know, spending $30 more a bag, and it wasn't even that much. It was more like 15. So you get what you pay for, you get what you put down and what you put into it, but we're pretty happy with this. We will make our money back the first year. Last field we're gonna talk about before we start cutting is this field, and I am sure this is the one that everybody has been asking about and everybody is interested in. This is the paddock. It's just over 2 acres that we called the Big Ag paddock. So this field cost us just over $300 an acre to put out. We tilled it in, we put 1,000 pounds of lime to the acre, we put fertilizer down to the specifications of our soil test, we sowed in a pasture mix, broadcasted that out with our fertilizer spreader, and we also sowed in our annual oats. And these things are huge. They are over 6 foot tall in some sections, and the lowest I have found, as a car drives by, the lowest I have found is about 3.5 feet. As you get on top of the hill, so they're kind of up and down right through here, you might be able to tell. That's why I'm showing this section, because they're not perfectly even. But up on top of the hill, they're stronger, they're taller, and they're more even and consistent. So let's talk about these oats. So I pulled an individual one out of the ground. So you can see we have a pretty good root structure down in our ground, but it didn't really go down far. It's not 8 feet down. It's not even 3 inches down in some spots, but it is adding some organic material because this field was very low in it. But as you see, I'll put this on the ground. This one piece is up to my mid chest, okay? There's not a lot of foliage though in these oats. This grass is what they're going to be eating, these leaves, right? Now this stem is like a big piece of grass and there's a lot of moisture in it. It easily bends over and you can squeeze it and juice will come out. So there's still a lot of moisture in this, but there's really not a ton of foliage. I put down around 18 pounds of seed per acre, just between 18 and 20, which if I had to do this again, I think that's a little high. As you look towards the top though, there is quite a bit of foliage here, and this is a smaller plant. As you get into a bigger plant, the leaves are a little bigger and there's quite a bit more on them as they're taller. What we're looking for is this tip here though of seed. We still have a little ways to go, but I really don't want this to get dried out because our nutrition is in the green foliage that we will bale wet and turn into haylage or silage. We're looking for this end on our oats to be doughy. If this starts to dry out and drop seeds, we have let it go too far in my opinion. So this is what we're getting. The reason I say I think we put too much seed is that this is so thick. As you go up there and you start bending it over, the grasses that we wanted to become pastures underneath are a little thinner than I would like to see because this is taking so much sunlight. It has taken so much of the solar energy away before it hits the ground. Whereas if this was a little thinner, yes, we would get less of a yield, but it might produce a better underlayment. Now, time will tell. If I take this off and the underlayment comes and pops up really quick and becomes good and strong, feeds our cattle for years and years to come, I can take my words back and say 20 pounds or 18 pounds was right about the right mix. But at this point, I'm thinking I might have put this in a little thick. I'll tell you, this is not what I would have thought to do, okay? So this is what Big Ag recommended to me. And when I say Big Ag, I'm just talking about big commercial farmers that do things with large equipment. I'm not being derogatory. I guess I've said that comment, and some people think I'm talking negatively about large agricultural farmers. I grew up that way. Some people are against it in this niche of videos. I am not. We need every piece of agriculture, okay? If we shut off large soybeans and corn today, our country would starve, right? Most of the Big Ag group is still feeding our nation. We want to get away from some of that, more grass-fed beef, more natural products, but we can't, one, simply shut it off. And personally, I don't think it can ever go away if we want to be sustainable. So I'm not using Big Ag as a derogatory term. Please don't take it that way. That being said, this is what those guys recommended. They recommended come in and till, which is anti-permaculture, anti-small farm. They said till though, so we tilled. This farm, I think, needed the tilling though. It was pretty rough. It needed land leveling. It just needed, churned up a little bit. And I think the tilling actually helped this farm because it's going to help it drain better for years to come. The second thing is they said I needed fertilizer, which we don't put synthetic fertilizers on our farm, but because this had synthetic fertilizers and soybeans for years, we had to do something to get it started, to get some sustenance in the ground, some organic matter in, and then we can start putting animals on it and bringing manure back, natural fertility back. We had to put fertilizer on it. So we put fertilizer on it. We put lime on it. We had to get our pH back straight. It was at 4.3. And then we put all this money into seed, producing this crop. And I told you it's just costing us just over $300 an acre. Well, is it going to be worth it? In order to break even on this, have it pay for the rent, have it pay for the fertilizer and the seed and all that, I have to get somewhere between 7 and 8 bales per acre. So we're paying around $40 for a round bale. If you're paying more than that, this might be easier to pay off because you have to have less to make that payment back. But we're looking to get 7 to 8 round bales per acre. If we can do that or do better, this will pay for itself. But the biggest thing for us is it is establishing a pasture underneath, and will that work? All right, so if you've noticed the clouds as we've been talking, we have a 15% chance of rain tonight. I hope it skips us, and that is the goal. If it does, we will start cutting tomorrow night, and we will bale throughout this weekend, continuing this video on, showing you the yields. So stick around for all of that. Actually, it's just gonna be a few seconds because we're just gonna hit pause. But if it does rain, we're gonna hold off a few days. So this video may take 7 days to finish out. So see you in a few seconds. All right, we're getting everything hooked up. Let's start baling. Well, I apologize. The camera did not, it malfunctioned while I was baling. So you didn't see clips of me running the baler. It will be in the other video about baling if you want to look at that. It's the same footage. You rake it, you cut it, you rake it, you bale it up. But now we got to talk about results. And unfortunately, we've got good looking grass out here and cattle, but it did not turn out so well for us. The oats, especially, I was very disappointed. With as much height as we had, as good as everything looked, it wasn't a complete failure, but I did not make money on the oats. And so let's talk about that. How much did we actually get? So they were good quality bales, and they were very heavy. Those oats held in a lot of moisture. So I got super heavy bales, but I only got 7 bales. That was half of what I needed to break even. Now, I talked about that, about recouping all my costs on one crop, one cutting of this oats. So the fertilizer, the lime that we put down, it will continue to feed. It's not completely gone and just in my oats. There is a decent base underneath there. There is some bare spots though. We're gonna get to seed in the next rain here. We'll get to kind of broadcast in some better pasture grasses. I've got some seed up there for red clover and some other things. So where we're light, I'll get to put that in, and that fertilizer and stuff will continue to feed for crops for years to come. But ultimately, I was very disappointed and I had a lot of trouble, possibly even did it wrong. So here's what I've learned about oats. You saw how tall it was and how green it was. It looked thick, and it was. You couldn't walk through the stuff, but and the seed heads were doughy. So that's kind of the condition that we were told to bale this in if we were gonna make silage out of it. And what I had found was when I cut that, it was very hard to rake. So if you're gonna rake green oats, you probably need some kind of a power rake. We have a wheel rake, first of all, or a bar rake, not a wheel rake. And it doesn't have a PTO driven. So it's driven by the wheels of the tires. And so it doesn't want to pick that stuff up. It was too heavy. When we made it into a windrow, I couldn't hardly pick the windrow up. And I started to get concerned that was my baler gonna like jam up even trying to do this? So half of that field I raked into windrows, and I only used 4 cut passes. To put that in perspective, on our normal hay ground, we usually use an odd number, 5 to 7 if it's thick. On second cuttings, we'll use a 7 or a 9 cut rows into one windrow, once again, depending on how thick it is. But with the oats, I used 4, and it made a pretty healthy windrow, and I had to put it in the lowest gear just to make sure I wasn't gonna jam too much in there at once and bog down my baler. So now knowing, I've never done oats before, now knowing and had this experience, and I've talked to several people, but there's not a lot of people that has done oats around me, what would I do different? And so first off, if I was gonna bale this or try to turn it into a silage wet with a green oat, there's 2 ways that I would do that. Either cut it low, cut it when it was 2 foot tall, not get a very high yield off of it, and it would be easier to bale then, more like a hay. Or if I wanted to grow and get that height, I would probably need what I would call a thrashing machine, which kind of looks like a combine, and it shoots back into a silage trailer, and then they take that out and put it into these long tubes. If you had that kind of equipment, I think the oats would have done fairly well. It would have picked up more because there is still pretty good amount, here and there on the ground. I wasn't able to pick it all up and get all the remnants like I do on hay. So that would have grabbed more of it using that piece of equipment, and it would have chopped it up finer instead of these long stems that then had to wrap around with the baler. The other option was to completely let it seed out and get dry, and it would have almost been like baling oat straw. I have a friend who has done that. I did not want it to seed out because I was pushing on the realm of, are we feeding a grain or not? Technically, as long as it was baled and put into silage like that, it's not feeding grain, but I wasn't going to push that limit. And I didn't want to feed a dry oat straw it had good nutritional value, but it was kind of lower in protein. Most of the guys who feed that also feed grain, as this guy does. And so I wasn't going to listen to a grain-fed guy on how to do my oats because I don't feed grain for my protein. But I later found out that had I let it gone to seed, the seed would have increased the protein level. I still could have baled it kind of wet and turned it into silage, even though it was more like a straw or a wheat grass or a rye grass that had seeded out as a cover crop. That's probably what I would have done if I was only going to use a rake and a baler like I did, and then I would have wrapped it wet in order to try to increase some of that nutrient density there and held on to that. All those seeds would have been in there as well. I've seen other guys do this. They do eat it very well, but like I say, everybody that has done it this way around me has also fed grain. And so I was trying to do the best of both worlds here, and it didn't turn out so well. Ultimately, I kind of felt like a failure. I did film some of it, but I'm kind of glad the camera messed up because it was really irritating that day. Go back up to the barn. I'm out here feeding and water, and we'll go back up there and I'll show you kind of what I got. But to talk about the other paddocks that we had. So we had the paddock with the Greg Judy unrolling hay method, okay? I did get one round bale out of that, about 1,000 pounds. That spot is about a half acre. So 2,000 pounds for what technically is a second cutting is not bad. But because we had to pay $100 an acre rent, I've essentially got $50 in that one round bale. And I did put down, hay out there for seeds to fall that was kind of left in remnants out there. So ultimately, I might have come close to making my money back, but that was a failure. Now, the grass is coming in thicker there, but it's more weeds and more Johnson grass than it is a high quality hay where we have orchard grass and clovers and other things like that. On the other side, where we spread manure, which has always been the best in this whole test the entire time, we got 3 round bales, 3,000 pounds. So total, that is 7,000 pounds of forage off of that, just over an acre. And all we did was the $100 for rent, $50 in seed and fertilizer and lime, which was very minimal. And then we spread a bunch of manure, which we called that free, but you can, it has a value. So you determine what you want to add to that. So we more than made our money back, $40, $50 a round bale, whatever you want to look. And it was a high quality hay, tons of clover, tons of orchard grass. It came up well, and it's growing back already after one rain. We got a rain last night, and I already saw it like jump back very quickly and turn green. So it will get to be thick, and we will winter graze that again. So I got 2 cuttings, and I'm going to get a winter graze. Next year, I'll get a spring graze, 1 or 2 cuttings, and then a winter graze again. And then on to the back field. The back field, remember, was frost seeded grass. It was Rural King big box store pasture mix. I did have some fertilizer. I did have some lime. There was also a section of just lime, just fertilizer, and then a section that had nothing on it but the seed. I couldn't tell a difference, which tells you the little amount of fertilizer and lime that I put down was very minimal. I could tell a difference in first cutting, which we bush hogged down, remember. So I didn't get anything off of this because it was so thin. I was just trying to give back to the ground and rebuild this soil on this farm because we're going to be using it for years to come. But on the second cutting, what we just did, I got 3 round bales, so 3,000 pounds. The problem is that entire area was about 2 acres. So you got 1,500 pounds return on per acre. That's not enough to pay me back for what I did. But it is growing in thicker. There's less spots that I can see soil. We should either get another late fall cutting, or I'll be able to winter graze that. At the very least, it will become thick and I can start grazing there in the spring. I do foresee us having a much better year next year on that piece of ground. But ultimately, it cost me more than it gave me year one. Now there's one test plot that I did not do that I should have thought of, and I wish I would have done now that I've gone through this. And it's kind of my recommendation for you, because I foresee with what I did, this could be a good option. If you do not have manure, if you don't have a way to put down a lot of organic material, and there's an NPK in the manure as well, you're getting nutrients in there, and you're also having a lot of seed in that manure. So if you don't have that, what would I recommend today doing? Well, first off, if you have to till and land level, that's fine, and you can do that. The first year is the year to do that if the ground is really destroyed. What I did on the back, because I didn't till back here, we had some washouts. I put in a waterway, and I had on another part of the farm, I had some soil. I took that soil over there and filled in and land leveled to make the ground back good without tilling the whole thing. That field without tilling, even though it had soybeans on it, is so much smoother than where I tilled. I about beat my brains out because it's just rough. You tilled it up, you try to get it smooth, but it just doesn't smooth out quite right in a new field. I really would like to harrow drag it and land level it again. But just to let you know, I would not till unless the ground was so bad that I just had no other choice. Whether it's rutted up from loggers or whatever the situation would be, you're always better off, in my opinion, not to till. The second thing has to do with the timing of when you get this ground. If you get it during the winter, so the other farmer has decided not to come back, your lease starts in January, or if you're buying a piece of land, if you're getting it during a winter, or even at the fall, the best case scenario is to frost seed. One, you don't need that piece of equipment. You don't need anything to get the seed into the soil, right? You don't need a drill. You don't need a disc. You can simply rent a buggy and spread it out there. But if you don't have manure, I would go ahead and get you a soil sample, and the test plot that I didn't do to show you this was put down that fertilizer and lime. We did not frost seed in seed and then come back a month later when the ground had dried in the spring, or 2 or 3 months later, whatever it would be, right? And spread that fertilizer and lime on, giving that grass a good start. Now, if you're anti-synthetic fertilizers, which we don't use them here on our farm because we haven't needed them, but if I was starting a brand new farm, I would put down the lime. I would put down a starter fertilizer, perhaps not the max amount that the seed salesman or guy that wants to sell me at the farm co-op. So I do some research there on how much I need to get the seed going. That is a plot I wish I would have done. I wish I would have used the kind of big ag philosophy and got a starter fertilizer down more than the 50-pound bag per acre that I did. Put down the correct amount, put down the correct amount of lime, get your pH fixed right off the bat, and then you can use natural methods to keep it there and to better the soil in the following years. Altogether, this is not my greatest video ever. Sorry about that. We did have a pretty good test here. I'm pretty happy with the test. I'm excited to see what the years to come look like. We will have some more videos as we winter graze to see kind of what forage we have here in the winter. I lost some money on those oats. It's the way it goes. Welcome to farming, right? But ultimately, it's going to pay us year after year after that with the cover crop that's come in. There is a ton of organic matter that got put down. All of the stems and the roots that were left, it's organic matter now in my soil, right? There is some covering now on that soil that it didn't have before. So lots of pros there, but if you're looking for cost and pennies and those things, didn't happen in this video. One thing I will say, if you can rent ground for cheap, so 40, 50, 60 bucks an acre like some of the guys down south, and you can frost seed in seed and use minimal equipment, you can get your money back and then some. We've seen it happen the first year. I would recommend, if you have a bunch of manure, do that. If you don't, then put down some more fertilizer than I did. Get more of an accurate measurement with the soil sample. Doing that, you will get your money back in that. There you have it. We'll continue making videos. We'll continue to push on here at the farm. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Follow along with us. Make sure you check all the stuff out down in the description. I have some equipment there and some helpful hints. There's other videos. Check us out. Keep watching. Until next time, have a good one.
Please like the video and subscribe!